and welcome to LTV News. I'm Rudina Hatipi and these are the day's top stories. A Palestinian rocket hits southern Israel. Three people are killed in Lebanon violence. And survivors of Myanmar's earthquake move to tents. Here's a look at the latest from the Middle East. A Palestinian rocket fired from the Gaza Strip struck a house in southern Israel today, causing damage but no injuries. Last week, at least 6 Palestinians were killed after Israeli strikes, and now with the latest violence, there are fears that things may quickly escalate. Daniel Adam has more.
It's here in the Israeli town of Netivot that the latest Palestinian rocket has struck. Although nobody was hurt or injured, it has ended a brief overnight lull in violence between both sides, in which 6 Palestinians were killed by Israeli forces. 8 Israelis have also been wounded in the cross-border attacks. Many here are predicting a full-out Israeli attack on Gaza, making things even more intense. The Islamist movement Hamas, which refuses to recognize the Israeli state, governs in Gaza. However, many of the missiles fired out of Gaza are launched by other groups, with today's strike claimed by the Shura Council of Mujahideen. Israel went to war against Hamas in the winter of 2008 to 2009, but has shown little appetite for a new round that could strain relations with the new Islamist-rooted government in neighboring Egypt. But Conservative Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu may be reluctant to seem weak ahead of a January 22nd general election that opinion polls currently predict he will win.
Scores of civilians headed to the Turkish town of Ceylan Pinar after a Syrian plane bombed the rebel-held town of Ras Al Ain. The bomb struck within meters of the border fence that divides Ras Al Ain from the Turkish settlement, sending up huge plumes of black smoke. Syrians were fleeing from the area, scrambling beneath the border fence into Turkey. Ras Al Ain fell to the armed opposition groups on Thursday in a fighting that sent 9,000 people fleeing in a 24-hour period. It was one of the largest refugee influxes into Turkey after the Syrian civil war started. Ankara has been alarmed by the increasing number of Syrians seeking refuge in Turkey. More than 120,000 refugees are now registered in Turkish camps. 3 people were killed yesterday when fighting broke in the Lebanese coastal city of Sidon between followers of a Sunni Salafist preacher and supporters of the Lebanese Shia guerrilla movement Hezbollah. The killings underline the deepening Shia-Sunni divide in the tiny but regionally important country. Tensions have increased in Lebanon against the backdrop of the Syrian revolt. Wissam al-Hassan, a Lebanese intelligence commander and a right-hand man to the assassinated Hariri, was killed by a car bomb in Beirut last month. Sunni politicians and religious leaders blamed Syria and Hezbollah for his assassination. The two sides deny any involvement. Tens of thousands of Kuwaitis gathered into a square opposite Parliament yesterday in a peaceful opposition-led rally against new voting rules. Sheikh al-Sabah, the 83-year-old emir whose family has ruled Kuwait for more than 250 years, has said the new rules are aimed at preserving national unity. He warned last week there will be no leniency for threats to national security. The opposition, which is made up of Islamist, tribal, and liberal lawmakers, as well as youth groups, said the new voting rules are an attempt to skew the parliamentary election in favor of pro-government candidates. Under the new rules, each voter chooses only one candidate instead of 4, a move the opposition says will prevent its candidates winning the majority they had in the last vote. Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency, Yukiya Amano, called for a diplomatic solution of Iran's nuclear crisis in a meeting in Baghdad yesterday. At a press conference, Amano said he is convinced that the nuclear issue can be addressed through diplomatic means and stressed the IAEA's roles in solving the crisis.
I am very much convinced that the way to solve the IAEA has an essential role to play in solving this issue, Iran nuclear issues, through diplomatic means. It is the interest of Iran and for the international community. And that is why I believe that there is some good reason that Iran will get cooperative for us.
Moving on to world news now. Residents in Sinku Township in Myanmar are living in tents after an earthquake struck yesterday morning, killing at least 11 people. The magnitude 6.8 earthquake struck northwest of Mandalay, Myanmar's second biggest city. It was felt in Thailand and other neighboring countries. A senior official at the Ministry of Relief and Resettlement said more than 50 people sustained injuries and 4 are missing. President Barack Obama is set to become the first U.S. leader to visit Myanmar this month, the strongest international endorsement of the country's fragile democratic transition. German Chancellor Angela Merkel has arrived in Lisbon today as European leaders discuss what to do about the EU financial crisis. There is hope that her visit will help with Portugal's looming debt crisis. However, as Daniel Adam now explains, many are not convinced.
Angela Merkel arrived in Lisbon today, bringing her personal endorsement for a government battling to cut deficits under the terms of a German-backed bailout, as Portugal suffers its deepest slump since the 1970s. Protests are being planned against the German Chancellor's visit by the 12M movement and by labour unions. Merkel is seen by many in Portugal as the face that has been pushing austerity and calling the shots in the country after it agreed to a EU bailout. Merkel was greeted by tear gas and Nazi taunts in the streets of Athens a month ago. It is unlikely that her visit to Portugal will generate equal hostility, as protests in Portugal have not generally been marked by violence. Her visit comes as residents of Athens today received the news that the Greek parliament had passed the unpopular 2013 budget in the small hours, although doubts remained as to how quick the country would receive the next lot of international aid which the government had hoped to secure. The bill, which contained proposals for tax rises and spending cuts, was seen as key to convince Greece's lenders to release over €30 billion worth of crucial aid. But Eurozone officials said that no immediate decision could be expected, whilst doubts remained over how to make Greek debt sustainable. Her visit to Lisbon, her first such direct government meeting in Portugal since she took office 7 years ago, may also serve her interests back home by demonstrating to German voters that cash that they put into the Eurozone Rescue Fund is being used well.
British citizens have become increasingly concerned with the recent series of BBC scandals, which have mired the broadcaster in a confidence crisis. The BBC's Director General George Entwistle resigned yesterday after a Newsnight report which wrongly implicated Tory peer Lord McAlpine in a child abuse scandal. The resignation has triggered a mixed reaction among British civilians. Polly Toynbee, a former BBC employee, was saddened by the news.
It's very sad because he's a good man who has done very well in the BBC for many years, but he plainly wasn't up to this top job in the middle of a crisis. He was thrown into a terrible crisis in his first few days and he didn't manage to get a grip on it. The fact that he didn't know this Newsnight story was going out, the fact that we all knew that it was going out because it was on Twitter.
Afghan Prime Minister Hamid Karzai has continued his tour of India today, aiming to strengthen business ties between the two countries. His latest meeting has been with India's Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, who signaled that he's more than happy to tighten the partnership. Here's the latest.
Afghanistan's President Hamid Karzai held talks with Indian Prime Minister Manmohan Singh in New Delhi today and pressed for increased investment in his country. At the start of his 4-day trip, Karzai told business leaders in Mumbai on Saturday that his country was ripe and ready for more Indian investment. India is one of the biggest donors in Afghanistan, spending about $2 billion on projects ranging from the construction of highways to the building of the Afghan parliament. India has urged its vast private sector to invest in Afghanistan as a low-tariff destination, saying that it could help stabilize the country as Western nations begin to pull out troops nearly 11 years after the Taliban regime was ousted in 2001. Prior to the Taliban's ousting, India's arch rival Pakistan held most exclusive rights to trade with Afghanistan. Now Islamabad is deeply concerned about India's expanding role in Afghanistan, seeing it as a move to encircle it.
Now here's some finance news. Fears are growing in Japan that the country may slowly be sliding into a recession. The latest figures show the country's economy has shrank in the last 3 months, and many predict that the worst is yet to come.
Government data today showed Japan's economy shrunk 0.9% in the 3 months to September, suggesting slowing growth, and tensions with China are nudging the world's third largest economy into recession. The fall in gross domestic product marks the first contraction in 3 quarters and translates into an annualized 3.5% fall. Japan is now under pressure to further boost monetary stimulus as a strong yen and territory row with China add to the impact of the global slowdown on exports. Japan's benchmark Nikkei 225 index slid on the news, dropping about 0.7% in early morning trade. The country's economy outperformed most of its group of 7 peers in the first half of this year on robust private consumption and spending for reconstruction from last year's earthquake. But growth has stalled since then, and many are expecting things to get worse.
Now for some sports news. Talks between the National Hockey League owners and locked out players continued on a downward spiral yesterday as the two sides met for just an hour before deciding they were too far apart on the issue to continue. The two sides are attempting to work out how to split a $3.3 billion in annual revenue, whilst NHL Deputy Commissioner Bill Daley said he believes it is the players who refuse to budge on the issues. NHL Players Association Director Donald Furr said the risk stands of players having fewer rights.
We have emphasized to them we have certain concerns about the way the system operates. We need to address those concerns, and they're refusing to address them. It's their prerogative to do, but that's why we find ourselves where we find ourselves.
Flies in the face of something really important. Players have 2 interests here. Interest number 1 is how big the share is, and that's not agreed upon yet either, but parties have at least moved on that. And the second one is how does an individual player negotiate his piece of the pie? And the answer is that players will have vastly fewer rights and vastly less leverage for a vastly longer portion of their career under the NHL proposals. We know why they would like that. You know, the owners don't like players to have any bargaining power. Everybody understands that. You know, you can ask yourselves whether that's a matter which is in any fashion fundamentally fair or equitable. So that's where we are.
Now let's take a look at the world of arts and culture. Dozens of artists in eastern India's Bihar state are painting roadside trees and leaves with colorful stories from Hindu epics, hoping to save the region's already critically sparse greenery. The campaign has been launched in Madhubani, a district known for its religious and cultural awareness, resulting in hundreds of trees covered in elaborate artwork. The designs depict the moods of deities and scenes from Hindu classics. They believe the artwork will dissuade the deeply religious locals from cutting down the trees in fear of incurring the wrath of the deities. Thank you for watching. For more information, do visit our website, www.levant.tv. Join us tomorrow at the same time. Until then, from all of us at the LTV News, goodbye.